I'm Sofia Hernandez and I'm 36 years old. I'd have laughed out loud if you'd told me a couple of years ago that my life would be like this. See, I was never that kind of girl that liked romance, family, and to work hard. I thought if you gave people your best, they'd give you their best. I believed in loyalty. I thought you could make a comeback if you did your part. But all of that changed. The universe keeps on teaching you things that you didn't ask for. I have been with my husband Mateo for almost 10 years. We've been married for 7 of those years. When I first met him, he was everything I'd ever wanted in a man. He was lovely, funny, gentle, and made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. I sucked at him cold hard. When I was young, I assumed he was my happily ever after. I thought we were making something invulnerable. But sometimes love sucks you. We had been content. At least I thought we were for the majority of our marriage. We spoke of our ambitions, our plans, what we wanted for ourselves. And that dream for me was always the same. I'd like to have a child. I'd wanted to be a mother since I was little. When I was a child, I carried around my baby dolls, as if they were real. Then I would say to myself, one day, I will have a real baby. I didn't stay. Approximately after a year of trying, I began to fear. Month after month, test after test, I'd lost all hope. For a while, Mateo waited patiently. He'd say to me, "It just takes time, Cario. They're not something that is generated in an instant." But another year went by, and I suspected something was wrong. So we went to a fertility doctor. That was the beginning of a path that would consume me mentally, physically, and financially. The nurse explained to us that I was so sick that it was practically impossible for me to carry a baby to term. I'll never forget the moment in that room with its white walls, holding Mateo's hand as the doctor explained it to us. It was like another mundane fact he said it, but it seemed to me like he was saying my life was over. He should have told me I had lost a part of myself. I cried for days. I thought I had failed as a woman, as a wife, as a mother. I blamed my body. I blamed myself. But I am not an afterthought. We will do it differently, I told Mateo. We will make this work. So we threw ourselves into any fertility remedy we could. We did everything. Hormone treatments, medication, special diets, acupuncture, anything that would have the slightest chance of helping us. And I even had growths removed from my womb. My doctor thought it would help me. But post-surgery, I awoke to a report that sent me home like a brick to the face. There had been complications. They had to take out my womb. That day my heart broke into a million pieces. No uterus meant no pregnancy. I would never carry a child. It was over. But then I recalled what the doctor had said before. Your ovaries are still intact. Surrogacy still allows you to get live children. I hung on to that tiny glimmer of hope like a life-saving device. I had to think it was possible. I introduced Mateo to surrogacy. Initially reluctantly. We were both well aware of its price. It would run us close to $100,000, including the agency fee, legal fee, and medical fees. That was not the kind of money we had. I tried to stay upbeat, but in my heart I knew that this dream would be over too. That's when Camila came in. Camila was my college best friend. We got together freshman year when she borrowed my phone charger and we were forever in love. She was the type of friend who could make me laugh at the very worst of times. She had 2 children too. She loved being a mom and would always tell me she knew why it was so important to me. So one day, while we were sitting around her kitchen table drinking coffee, she looked at me and said, "I will do it, Sofia. I will carry your baby." At first I thought she was laughing, but she wasn't. I cried so loudly I had no words. I held her and we just sat and wept. She said, "You're a mama. And if I can do that, I will." That, as I reflect on it, wasn't quite the innocence that I thought it was. But then I thought she was my wonder, my angel. We proceeded immediately with surrogacy. My doctor suggested we need to undergo IVF, fertilizing my eggs with Mateo's sperm and implanting the embryo into Camila. It was costly, arduous, and emotionally draining. The first 2 cycles of IVF went wrong. Camila kept blaming herself, but I kept saying, "It's not your fault. It just takes time." I told her what Mateo had told me at the beginning. We found out after the 3rd attempt that Camila was pregnant. Never in my entire life had I felt more happy. I thought, this is it. This is finally it. That 9 months was an eternity. So much hope. I began putting things in the nursery, choosing baby clothes, fantasizing about what life would be like for me as a mom. I knew it was all going to be worth it, all the hurt, all the fighting. When Camila went into labor, I was right there with her. As soon as Lucas was born and laid in my arms, I would give him anything. He was mine. He was my miracle baby. Or so I thought. I wish I could wrap this up now. I wish I could say that everything stayed perfect. But life is in the habit of putting you to the test in unexpected ways. When Lucas was born, I was back to work in my first 4 weeks of vacation. We were deep in debt from the IVF cycles, the hospital bills, and the lawyer fees. I couldn't do anything except return to work as soon as possible. I was working 2 jobs, one full-time and one on weekends. Mateo came home more than I, and since Camila was out of work for her baby, she became increasingly at home. I'd come home from weekend work and find her on my couch with Mateo like they were old friends. It was a bit strange, but I swallowed it. I thought they were just hanging out since she carried our son. Small signals that I could have seen. Lucas had brown eyes. Mateo and I have blue eyes. It was strange to me, but it wasn't terribly important to me. Genes are weird, and I had read about blue-eyed parents with brown-eyed offspring. I had too much faith in both to see what lay before me. Then everything changed. I took Lucas to a doctor's appointment, a routine visit. They took blood tests, and when they were completed, the nurse offhand mentioned that Lucas was B positive. Froze. I knew that couldn't be. I'm A positive and Mateo is O positive. I was savvy enough about genetics to know that 2 parents with those blood types couldn't have a B positive child. My heart started racing. I went immediately into correct it. I said it was a lie. The clinic is at fault, obviously, I concluded. I convinced myself that the fertility clinic had mislabeled the embryos. I began calling lawyers, willing to sue the clinic. I even arranged a DNA test confirming what I knew. But it wasn't simply ascertained by the DNA test. It opened my eyes to something I wasn't prepared for. When the DNA test results came back, I took up the envelope at the kitchen table. I waited to see it for hours, beating in my chest. It was going to show that the fertility clinic was in the wrong. I just knew that once I cracked it open, I could contact my lawyer and begin suing the clinic. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. I opened the envelope, laid out the sheet, and focused straight to the words that would make me forever. Biological mother, not a match. I didn't realize at first. My mind wouldn't absorb what I was reading. Lucas was my son I had thought for 2 years. I loved him. I raised him. How could he not be mine? I had read the paper over and over because I felt like maybe I was getting things wrong. Checked the name. Lucas Hernandez. I checked the mother's name. Sofia Hernandez. No match. My hands started to shake. And then underneath that, something else. Biological father. 99.9% match. My heart stopped. The biological father was Mateo. My husband. I was like a cab hit me. Had the clinic gone awry? How could Mateo still be father? Did not add up. None of it made sense. For a while I sat there and just stared at the paper. My mind went blank. I was pulsing, my breath shallow. I kept telling myself, no, this is not right. This is not real. This is a mistake. I ring the testing facility to insist they run it over. And the operator calmly explained that DNA tests such as this are highly accurate. There is no misunderstanding, ma'am, she told me. The results are correct. I sat there a while longer, still just numb. And then it came down like a clap. If Lucas wasn't mine but Mateo's, there was just one thing. He slept with Camila. It was like a whole bone on my body breaking all at once. My breathing became shallow. I would faint. No, I muttered as if I could make it not true once more. I refused to believe it. I took out my phone and dialed Mateo. I couldn't even push the buttons because my hands were shaking so badly. He came back, his tone casual and calm. Hey, Cario, what's up? He said like all was well. As if my world was not crumbling. Could barely breathe. I need you home, I just said. Now. Something had to have stung in his ears because he said, what's wrong? Are you okay? I repeated myself. Call me. Now. It was 20 minutes home, but hours. I sat at the kitchen table with the paper in my hands. He came in and I just stared at him. I didn't see my husband for the first time. I saw a liar. I encountered a man who had abandoned me on the personal level. He looked at me confused. "What is going on, Sofia? You are scaring me." I held up the paper. "Explain this." I slapped it down on the table before him. He took it and began to read, his eyes circling. I watched his face change. Confusion. Then something else. Guilt. He blinkered a few times and laid down the paper slowly, not gazing at me. He knew. I knew right then. "Tell me," I said, my voice crisp and cold. "Say it, Mateo. Say what you did." He covered his face, long sighing. "Sofia, hear me, it is not what you imagine. Don't tell me that, Mateo." I hit my hands on the table so hard the plates jarred. "You slept with her. Have you or didn't you sleep with Camila?" Silence. "Did you sleep with her?" I was yelling now, my throat dry. He finally looked at me. His eyes were red, but too late. "Yes," he said quietly. "Yes, I did." I heard something break inside me. I waited there with my heart beating so fast I thought it would pop. My ears were ringing. My vision blurred with tears. My legs were fatigued and could collapse at any time. "You slept with my best friend. You slept with my best friend." I was talking to myself rather than him. Could not believe it. "You cuddled with her while I worked 2 jobs to support our baby, and you..." My voice faltered and I hid my mouth with my hand so I wouldn't break down. "I made a mistake, Sofia." Mateo pushed me forward with open hands, almost giving up. "It only happened a couple of times and I never thought it would affect anything. Pulled out every time. I never believed she'd be able to have children." Those words made me snap. I laughed, but not an ordinary laugh. It was a bitter, empty voice that rung off the walls. "So you thought pulling out would stop you getting pregnant? You idiot, Mateo, or fucking mean. You were cheating on my best friend and I was shit-bombing myself to make it all pay." He kept trying to explain. "Sofia, I thought I was the one who caused it. We were unable to get pregnant for 4 years and I was sure I was the culprit. I did not believe it would." "Well, congratulations, Mateo. It did the trick." I was in the middle of crying, sweaty and frustrated. "So good you had a whole baby on her. And I was the devil bringing him up like he was mine." I turned around and left the house. Had no suitcase. Nothing I took with me. I picked up my car keys, got in my car and drove off. Where I was going I didn't even know. I did not care. I didn't want to be there, really. I stayed at a hotel out of town. I arrived without agenda. I was there for 6 days in that hotel room. Barely ate. Barely slept. I just sat there playing back in my head. Every smile. Every laugh. Every time Camila would sit on my couch and pretend to be my friend. Every time Mateo kissed me he knew what he'd done. I didn't want to get rid of it. The 7th day I texted my parents. I told them I was coming home. I informed them that I was divorced from Mateo. My mother was silent and then said, "Run home, Mija. We'll get it." When I got there I told them all. I told them about Camila, about Lucas, about the DNA test. My mom cried while I cried. My dad just sat there and wrung his head and clenched his jaws. "That guy doesn't deserve you, Sofia," my dad said. "You owe him nothing." He nodded. I knew he was right. But there was one final choice I had to make. Lucas. I'd been madly in love with that boy for 2 years. I had held him as he'd cried, nursed him, rocked him to sleep, laughed at his first words and watched him walk. But now when I thought of him, all I could see was the abandonment that birthed him. So I told my parents I was abandoning my parental rights. I told them I could not remain linked to Lucas. My mom cried like I'd never seen her. "He is still your son, Sofia. You don't have blood for a family," she said. But I shook my head. "He is not mine, Mama. He never was. I need to start over. I need to be free." When I explained to my parents that I was abandoning parental rights, I expected them to see the light. They should have been there for me because they knew everything I'd gone through. But this was not to be. My mom was sitting next to me, crying, disappointed. You don't think well, Mija, she shook her head. I know you are harmed, but you cannot leave Lucas. He is still your son. I shook my head. No, Mama, he is not. I love him, but he isn't mine. He was never mine. I cannot look at him without seeing them. My voice wailed and I could feel the sound in my chest. Every time I look at him, I'll think of Mateo and Camila. I will be reminded that I was working 2 jobs. They were going under my radar. My father had gone silent, leaning forward with his hands in the air. I could see the fury in his mouth, the way it clenched when I said Mateo's name. He finally spoke. I don't blame you, Sofia. Nobody would. But you must think. You raised that boy for 2 years. You do not escape Mateo and Camila alone if you exit. It is Lucas too. I shook my hands over my face. I know, Papa. You know. But I'm not good enough to do it. I can't hold myself in his arms and be reminded of all they have done to me every day. I need a clean break. You are better than you think, my father said, but I could hear his desperation. Please do not make this choice in a fury, Mija. Don't be the one to commit the sins you can't repent. But I already decided. I had sat there in that hotel room for 6 days pondering it, crying about it, accepting it. I wouldn't be dragged into the embrace of something that was slowly killing me in my chest. I met with my lawyer the following week. It was Daniela Vargas, and from the first time I met her, I knew she had serious business. She had this no-frills thing going on and I needed that. She listened to my story without judging, recording as I spoke. I mentioned that I wanted to surrender parental control. She took a seat back and stared at me. This isn't an easy process, right? She wrote on her notebook. Once you end parental rights, that's it. There is no child support, no custody, no visitation. You cannot withdraw afterwards. I know, I said firmly. That is what I want. She raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Yes, I am sure. Okay, she said, nodding slowly. And here is what we have to do. She laid out the whole process, the paperwork, the hearings, the deadlines. It wasn't going to be easy or fast, but I felt that I had to. A week later, I got divorced. Mateo looked like he was surprised. Sofia, stop. When I brought him the papers. Why are you doing this? We have suffered too much together to dump it all on the road. I laughed bitterly. I am not chucking anything away, Mateo. You did that when you slept with Camila. It wasn't meant to, Sofia. He groaned, his voice hollow. People make mistakes. I ran in and took him to his knees. The snub is not picking up the trash. One is putting your keys in the car. Sleeping with my friend many times when she was supposed to be carrying our baby. And it's not a typo, Mateo. That is a choice. And you made it. He argued, tried to make me think twice for Lucas's sake, but I was tired. I didn't have to hear his excuses. I had waited too long for him, dying for him, believing in him. I was done. And when he realized I was serious, he stopped all of that. From sorry to furious. Fine, he snapped. But you are not leaving Lucas. He is your son too. You brought him up for 2 years. What kind of mom is that just goes away like that? I had a sharp feeling in my chest like he'd shot me with that. I had given everything to Lucas for the previous 2 years. I cherished him like he was mine because for 2 years I thought he was mine. But now I understood. And that was too bad to deal with every day. I am not his mother, Mateo, I whispered. You made sure of that. He put his hands up, ran through the kitchen. So that is it, huh? You just will quit. Like he doesn't even count. No, I said, the sound of my voice hard. He means everything to me, but nothing to you. And I don't want to be the only one defending this family. The divorce proceeding went on for years and was bitter. Mateo fought me on everything. He tried to persuade the court that I was dumping Lucas. He portrayed me as greedy and mean and told anyone and everyone that I was simply going to hell. I could hear all the hush, all the indirect stuff from friends. I can't believe she is leaving her son. How did she do that? They didn't know what I'd been through. Camila tried to reach out too. She wrote me text messages. Sofia, please. It is too late to call it quits. I didn't answer. She was dead to me. I blocked her on everything. Months passed, and I got what I wanted. My attorney, Daniela, called me one afternoon. "Well done, Sofia. Your parental rights have been taken away. It is done." There was something weirdly enveloping me. It was not happiness. It was not relief. It was just quiet. I had tried so hard, so cried, and now it was done. No more court dates. No more lawyers. No more texts from Mateo. No more guilt. I breathed for the first time in years. I decided to move. I took everything with me, went to work somewhere else, and went home. I did not tell Mateo where I was going. I did not tell Camila. No one, not even my parents, knew about it. I cried when I left my mother, but she took me close and said, "You're going to be okay, Mija." "I will, Mama," I told her. "I have to." Starting over was not easy. I was on the water for the first few weeks. No roots, no ties. But gradually I began to rebuild. I had a new apartment, new friends, and a therapist to sort all the hurt and anger I had been carrying around. A while back, in my therapist's office, she made a question I never forgot. "How would you like to live from now on?" she said. I wondered about it for days. I did not know the answer immediately, but I eventually got free. I wanted to be stoked. I needed to believe again. I needed to love myself as I had for so many years loved everyone else. It has been almost a year since I walked away from everything. I haven't heard from Mateo or Camila since the day my rights were taken away. I worry sometimes if Lucas is going to hate me when he's older, but then I tell myself that I just did what I needed to do to make it through. I want to become a mother someday. Maybe I will adopt. And who knows, maybe I'll find someone to love me as I need to be loved. But this time I will go on my terms. If that means I'm the bad guy in their narrative, then so be it. They've already deserted me, so I don't have to keep them at bay. I'm not afraid to be the villain anymore. No villains smash. And I have already been too broken to last me a lifetime.